Is it true that only religious people will end up in heaven or hell? Or at least in heaven? See, this has been a question that has been going on for thousands of years, because throughout the times, people have been believing in their own cosmogony for, well, the longest of time. When people could not understand something, even nowadays, when you look at a lot of people, especially the miserable ones, if they don't understand something, if they can't understand it, or, well, they don't want to understand something, what happens? Well, copium, right? They will invent something, they will try to come up with some pseudo-scientific stuff and the such. And for the longest of time, all the civilizations in the world have been believing in something. They all had a certain pantheon, and obviously they had a correlated cosmogony, more or less. Well, let's say there was an exception when it comes to the Celts, because, well, they don't seem to have anything about their pantheon that says how the gods were born or how the world was created. As much as I've read, it's just that the world simply existed and, well, things started happening. But that is not important for now. See, when the Abrahamic religions appeared, there had to be hooks to draw people in. The problem was the majority of people that were drawn in were miserable people, were illiterate people who didn't have any sense about life. They only had their own little piece of land and probably one or two other belongings, and that was it. Their only faith was, well, whatever it was. And then when a collective faith, like the Abrahamic religions, kicked in, it triggered humanity's passion or longing towards mysticism. So obviously, people simply went along. And the problem is, if something is born in misery, unfortunately, it will become, a means of misery, and it will propel misery even more. Because no one can blame Christianity or Islam or even Judaism about anything bad, anything that is written in a book. You have full power, whether you want to believe that, whether you want to practice that, whether you want to follow along, or whether you want to be intimate with that. When we look towards the history, well, we as humans have been existing on this planet under one shape or another for around 1 million years. Well, they tell you 100,000 years, but, well, it takes more than that to simply evolve from the level of a monkey to the level of us humans as we are. Because if you look at the reptiles, for example, science says that they've been looking almost the same for the last few 100 million years. And their shape is somewhat a bit more primitive than ours. We have far more complexity when it comes to our physical body, but especially to the potential that we can reach spiritually. It doesn't mean that reptiles are necessarily inferior to us. They have their own perceptions as well. When it comes to perceptions, beliefs, and the such. Humanity has existed a bit too much in this idea, in this belief that something else will save you. It is time humans wake up to the fact that in the end, no one will actually save you. See, they will always tell you that there are those who are martyrs. They died for their own faith. Well, that is an excellent thing. Fighting for something that is beyond you, well, in the end, is an awesome aspect, and a lot of people should take example. But the point is, dying foolishly also is a bit of a problem. And when you're obsessed with something, when something becomes your copium, it kind of becomes indistinguishable whether you simply want to fight for it or whether you would simply want to die for it. Because if you want to die for something, that's always going to be a problem. If you just want to fight for something and, well, argue about it, or if you are ready to kill but at the same time you are ready to live, not die stupidly, well, that's another thing. But since the world was made of illiterate people, obviously dying for the so called faith was a thing of utmost importance. Why? Because sacrifice creates drama, and miserable people love drama, right? If you want to distract the masses, always give them drama. Always praise or pseudo praise, those who died for the faith. And always, all these Abrahamic religions more or less promised their followers a lot of physical rewards after they perish in the name of the faith. But the problem is, no one even asked, well, the masses couldn't comprehend the fact that if you die, well, you lose this physical body. You become, well, what the Abrahamic religions call a ghost. Yes, a non-physical being. Well, the spirit, the karmic structure that you're gonna be after you leave this physical body is still gonna be very physical, depending on how much trauma, how much, well, how intensely you lived your life. You will be perceived one way or another, or not. And the point is, you're still gonna be physical, but very subtle. And at that level of subtlety or subtleness, I don't know how to call it, at that level, you're not gonna need anything physical that the Abrahamic religion's heavens will be promising you. You're not gonna need any virgins. You're not gonna need any angels around you to cuddle you with music. You're not gonna need any of the food that you're gonna be promised, right? When you look back in the times, and you see, for example, even some of the pagan beliefs, they had all sorts of rewards, like the Norse one, the Norse ones, they would dine with the gods after they perish. You're going to become a ghost. You're not going to even touch anything of those physical aspects that you were promised. But the point is, there needs to be a hook, because the problem was all the Abrahamic religions in time, they were easily turned into businesses, because once something catches other people's interest, there will always be those who will take advantage of that. And the Abrahamic religions kind of have always become a business. When they became political, well, the political has always been a more of a facade business, right? It shows you that, or I don't know how to put it in words, it shows itself in an innocent way, but obviously it's nothing else but someone's agenda, someone's interest in the end. And someone's interests are always nothing else but someone's business. Because a business means you're going to use some resources to get some outcome. Yes, obviously. And looking at the wars and whatever happened, clearly no one was the brighter side, no one was the more innocent side. So when you look at all the religions, well, throughout the time, most of our ancestors wouldn't even make it to the so called heaven that each and every one of these religions portrays. Yes? Because a religion in the end is nothing else but a set of virtues that you are supposed to follow. If you end up using anything in the name of misery, obviously in the end it will become nothing else but a tool to impose misery upon others. And the utmost misery that you can impose on others is what? Well, torture and killing, because, well, ultimately there is no other form of misery. When you suffer enough, well, you're gonna create a huge amount of hatred towards yourself. Then you will simply reverse it into better hating the others than yourself. You're still gonna hate yourself, but copium is a very strong drug. And once you start hating others, you become more sadistic. You become probably even more masochistic. But when you become masochistic and you suffer enough, well, you're gonna tend towards sadism as well. So the point is, will anyone outside of your religion reach heaven? Well, the question lies around for so long, and people kind of forget one thing. Why not ask yourself, are you actually embracing heaven right here on earth? Right? Because when you are very happy, what do you say? You're experiencing heaven. Most of the cultures nowadays kind of have a way of putting that into words. Whether you're like in the ninth sky, as the Romanians say, or whether you're sky high with joy, or whatever other expressions you might have, clearly you're experiencing a certain sense of greatness when you are very joyful, right? When you're experiencing misery, obviously everything around you feels like hell, and even time seems to go extremely slowly, right? Because suffering is very slow. That is why people who suffer a lot, they might be 70 years of age, but they'll probably be thinking that they suffered for 1,000 years. When people are joyous and happy and very light-hearted, they may have lived 1,000 years, but it felt as if they only lived a few days, right? So the point is, whatever way one lives their own life, heaven and hell are, well, what if they are not existent? People should ask themselves a lot more questions, not to dismantle religions necessarily. Everyone needs to believe in something. And the biggest problem that there is with religions is that they're still tied too much to misery. They're still tied to this idea, I'm of this religion, everyone else must be of this religion. Or my religion is better than the others. Or other people's religion is better than mine, right? Because there is a lot of hatred in between the religions as well. And you can only hate something which is superior. You can only hate something, well, it doesn't have to be superior, but you can only hate something which you perceive as superior. Because why the heck would you hate something that is inferior to you? Yes, wouldn't that make no sense? So the point is, in life, people should ask themselves way more questions. Beliefs and religions should be only a personal pursuit, not a race, whoever is more Christian, whoever is more Muslim, whoever is more this and that. That matters not, because in the end, when you'll be meeting death, well, death will not care what religion you were. Death will not care how much money you had. It only mattered to you, or it should have mattered to you, how well you felt in your life and how much you left behind for other people, because those will be virtues that you will be taking with you in your further lives. But depending on how much misery you suffered, you went through, and especially created for others, you will go through a certain level of misery as well. It might take you thousands of years, might take you millions of years, you never know. Nobody will ever know, but you will experience that for sure. And be sure that beyond this physical body, you will experience states which will be millionfold. If you think depression is great in this physical body, I assure you, you have never felt depression at the level that you can feel after you will be losing this physical body. Because this physical body is very dense and therefore it has its own limitations. Beyond that, there will be far less limitations. The amount of joy, the amount of lightheartedness or misery, distress, pain, shame, and guilt, and whatever else that you will feel after you perish, well, the way you perish will have a huge influence on how you will be feeling until you find your new body. This is what older generations of people, thousands of years ago, were talking about when they were talking about heaven and hell. They were not talking about physical locations or geographic locations. But since many scholars were also somewhat illiterate as well, or translation mistakes were done, or some people simply shifted some of the senses in the, let's say, more modern or more recent Abrahamic religions to better suit their agendas and to better manipulate people into following their agendas, well, we may never know. But the question is, how many questions are you asking yourself? Are you just blindly following? Because if you want to be a sheep, there's only the slaughterhouse that will be given to you. If it is not obvious, we are living in a death cult society, a sick society that wants you dead no matter what, or at least sick enough that whatever money you get, which is anyways a piss in the wind, because a sick society tells you that you're worth almost little to no money. You're given a worth by people who are far more primitive, most likely, far more idiotic, retarded, and whatever other words you want to associate them with, like naturally. And well, these are the fuckers who are putting a price on your head. Yes, they are the ones who give you the so called worth. Yes, and obviously they will be more worth than you because they're investing in their misery. They don't know anything else, so obviously there can't be anything else in the world but their own misery, right? So when it comes to life, ask yourself more questions. Don't just foolishly blindly follow. It's not about giving up your belief. Your belief should be about a set of virtues that you follow. Whatever the saints did, prophets, angels, super people, and the such did, those are praiseworthy. But don't forget, those people have lived their life. They have passed away. Now the question is, you are here for a very brief moment of time. Whether you live 100 years or 1,000 years, it won't matter compared to the scale of the universe. You're gonna be here for a few years, for a few dozen years, for a few 100 years. You never will know. You may live 1,000 years. But ultimately, the question is, how have you been enriching your life? How high have you gone when it comes to the levels of awareness? Yes, because this sick society, what is it doing? What is it asking? That you only worship your own downfall and that you also end up enjoying it, worshipping the worshipping of your downfall. Yes, this is nothing else but a sick, narcissistic society. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care, enjoy life, and this being said, Ferencan Board signing out.